Philippines as Biodiversity Hotspot. The Philippines is one of the 18 mega-biodiverse countries containing two-thirds of Earth biodiversity and 70% of bird plants and animal species due to its geographical isolation, diverse habitats, and high rates of endemisms. The Philippine biodiversity provides several ecosystem services. It also provides foods, water, energy sources, pharmaceuticals, biomass fuels, carbon sequestration, and climate regulation, crop pollination, cultural and spiritual inspiration, and ecotourism value. The Philippines forms an ocean region that has been long recognized as the world center of marine biodiversity. With the Malay Archipelago, Papua New Guinea, and Australia, the country forms the Coral Triangle so-called because of the abundance of its coral reef life. Covering the major portion of Coral Triangle with more than 16,800 kilometers of coral reef, the Philippines is a global center of marine biodiversity. Its central region from Luzon to Mindanao has been more marine species per unit area than any other place on the planet. 30% of the population, including 12 to 15 million indigenous peoples, reside in the upland where most of the forests are located. These forests provide timber and non-timber products totaling to $100 million in net benefits yearly. The Philippines is one of the world's hotspots with a large number of endangered and threatened species, making it a top global conservation priority area. The continuing habitat degradation and forest land conversion are the major threats to Philippine biodiversity. These are attributed primarily to the large-scale and indiscriminate logging and mining, human population over-harvesting of resources, and infrastructure development. Philippines is also rich in sea. Tropical reefs are the richest marine ecosystem on the earth that those found in the Philippines, boast in the diversity of life and color that is unparalleled. The Philippines is part of the Coral Triangle, the epicenter of marine biodiversity, and what is considered as the Amazon of the sea. The Philippines presents unique coastal, marine, and island biodiversity. It is indeed located within the Coral Triangle at the epicenter of the highest marine biodiversity on the planet. Several endemic species in the Philippines have only 4% of the natural forest habitat remaining. At the sea, an unstable fishing has reduced fish population, putting pressure on the ocean's ability to provide food and income. Much of the Earth biodiversity, however, is in jeopardy due to human consumption and other activities that disturb and even destroy ecosystem. Pollution, climate change, and population growth are all threats to biodiversity. These threats have been caused unprecedented rise in the rate of species extinction in the world.
In 1988, ancient history to some of us, and in fact might be prehistory to others, there was a scientist by the name of Norman Myers who wrote a really important paper that analyzed different types of geological, climatological, and uniqueness criteria to come up with the concept of a hotspot. Scientists who looked at this problem decided eventually that there really were two main criteria that were going to lead to what Conservation International now recognizes as a biodiversity hotspot. One criterion was that there had to be at least 1,500 endemic species of plants. We'll get back to the idea of endemism in a moment. There also had to be an additional factor that made the area unique and deserving of our focus. There had to be more than 70% of the original habitat already lost, which highlighted the need to designate this place as a hotspot. Well, why plants? Well, plants, particularly in terrestrial environments, are crucial. Animals go where the plants are. Plants are the primary producers. They're at the base of food webs. Life attracts other life, and it depends on other life. Now let's get back to that idea of endemism. An endemic species is a species that's found in a certain area and nowhere else on Earth. In other words, endemism is a measure of how unique and irreplaceable something is. An example of an endemic organism that resonates with people love tortoises. If you think about the Galapagos Islands, for example, most islands have their own special type of tortoise. It lives there and nowhere else. So if something happens to wipe out the tortoises on that island, those tortoises are gone forever. They're not found anyplace else. They were irreplaceable. At the moment, Conservation International formally recognizes 34 biodiversity hotspot areas on Earth. The interesting thing about this is that less than 3% of the Earth's land surface area is represented by these hotspots. So we're talking about some very, very special places indeed. There are other ways to think about these special places on Earth besides hotspots. Some of these concepts are used to help recognize larger geographical units of land and water that have unique assemblages of species or distinct environmental conditions that make them worthy of our special attention. I think it's really important that we recognize that the hotspot idea is much more than a conservation tool. It's actually become a powerful scientific tool, because hotspots are a blood pressure cuff for planet Earth. You can go back and keep measuring the effects on these different places due to human activity or environmental change of various kinds, and go through the science of measuring the pressure on biodiversity. In a sense, hotspots are almost like avatars. They're like representatives for other endangered areas on the planet that might not necessarily meet the special criteria of 1,500 endemic species of plants and more than 70% of the original habitat loss. And yet, they are still obviously critical and important places for lots of organisms to live. You need to think about hotspots as a network of places on Earth that are interconnected. Not just single units that protect small pieces of biodiversity, but that help preserve biodiversity in a great many other habitats and other hotspots as well. And lots of conservation organizations, government agencies, and even concerned people like all of us can use these hotspots to better help direct the resources to the places that require our greatest attention. Above all, we need to remember one overriding principle: that we focus on protecting the highest number of species that we can, especially the ones that are most threatened. That's what this hotspot concept is trying to get to. We want to enhance our ability to protect species richness. That way, we can boost the stability and resilience of ecosystems. So I think that for me, these hotspots really do carry that special signal and are really worthy of the special effort that's being developed over the last few decades to monitor them, to provide the good, solid science that helps us not just to define them, but to monitor and promote their health down the road, and to employ those concepts to draw people in, to develop that people power that's really necessary to move forward with the protection of life on Earth.
Philippines is the second largest archipelago in the world, located in the southeast region of Asia and westernmost Pacific Ocean. It is considered to be a mega-diverse country because of its exceptional diverse in ecosystem, species, and the genetic resources found within its 7,640 island territory. Philippines is known to be a home of 52,177 described species, of which 50% and more are believed to be endemic. It is possible that Philippines may practically have more biodiversity on per unit basis. Unfortunately, its species richness, high endemisms, and diversity are all at risk, qualifying it to be a biodiversity hotspot. Threats come from the habitat alternation and loss brought by the destructive resource use, development-related activities, and human population pressure. The overexploitation in natural resources reduced the forest to an alarming 24% from its original cover. And tamaraws are one of the species found in the Philippines. And aside from tamaraw, the Philippine blue eagle or monkey eagle, considered as the Philippine national animal, is in extinction. This unique and rare kind of birds is considered to be at risk of extinction based on the UNCN.